June 1st, 2026 meeting is now called to order at 7:02. Will all who are able please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will now ask Recording Secretary Giles for a roll call vote to establish a quorum.
As I call a school district, please state your name. Afton.
Jeanette Schoenberg.
Bayless.
Shannon Kohler.
Brentwood.
Katie Clark.
Clayton.
Chris Wynn.
Ferguson Florissant.
Sheila Powell Walker.
Hancock Place.
Garrett Mace.
Hazelwood.
Betsy Rachel.
Jennings. Kirkwood. Ladue.
Keisha Lee.
Lindbergh.
Megan Better.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights.
Lee Francois.
Melville.
Patrick McKelvey.
Normandy.
Teresa Pearson.
Parkway. Pattonville.
Jeannie Shotmuller.
Brittner.
Dr. Margaret S. Alvin Wilson.
Riverview Gardens.
Veronica Barrovia.
Rockwood.
Carrie Bockert.
School District of University City.
Kay Gay.
Valley Park.
Kim Belchamber.
Lester Groves.
Peter Quinn.
There's a quorum present.
A quorum being present, welcome all to this June Governing Council meeting. Next up on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
McKelvey. Second McKelvey. Melville.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve the minutes from the March meeting and the May 18th retreat. Is there a motion?
So moved, Brittner.
Thank you. Normandy. We have Rittner and Normandy. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Ms. Lee, I just need to abstain from the retreat since I was not,
Okay.
and I wasn't present either.
Yep.
So we have 2 abstentions. 3. Motion still carries. Next up, we have on the agenda public comments. Up to 15 minutes, each meeting is set aside to hear public comments. Each comment is limited to 3 minutes to address any item that is a legitimate part of the agenda of the Governing Council. Time limits are strictly observed and speakers are invited to the podium. I have 4 people who have signed up. First up, we have, 6, I'm sorry. 4 tonight and 2 previously. First up, we have Tim Eby, Executive Director of Special Education Foundation. Oh. Okay, I'll go back.
Good evening, Ms. Lee and members of the Special Schools District Governing Council. My name is Tim Eby, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Special Education Foundation. And I want to first welcome the new Governing Council members who are here tonight. Thank you for your commitment to the Council and to the students and staff of SSD. The Special Education Foundation is an independent 501c3 nonprofit that works in partnership with the Special School District to provide assistance to students, families, and educators in the SSD community in ways not supported by tax dollars. Through our programs, we have helped more than 8,000 students over the past year, from early childhood grades to the vocational skills program. I wanted to share with you a couple of upcoming events that you might want to add to the Governing Council calendar as you look ahead. A week from Thursday, SEF is hosting our 3rd annual Starfish Awards, which recognize unsung heroes in the SSD community. This event, which serves as a fundraiser for SEF, will be on Thursday, June 11th at the Reverie STL in Chesterfield. We will honor 11 individuals, including SSD staff from Jennings School District, Rockwood, Webster Groves, Parkway, Ferguson Florissant, Hancock Place, Ackerman School within the SSD schools, and the Ladue Early Childhood Center. We will also recognize 3 people with Community Starfish Awards. And if you're interested, tickets are still available at starfishawards.org. And this event is really around recognizing folks who are making a difference, large and small, with the students that we support and serve in the special school district. It's a wonderful and inspiring event, and we'd love to have you join us. We're also planning our other major fundraiser, the Dan McLaughlin Charity Golf Tournament and Auction. This will be our 24th annual tournament and will be held on Monday, October 12th at Norbert Hills Country Club. The funds from these events go along with a lot of philanthropy and donations and grants, has helped make this an incredible year for the Special Ed Foundation. This includes awarding $32,500 in post-secondary scholarships to students, providing more than $50,000 in grants to educators for innovative projects, and adding a new leadership program for middle school students that will begin this fall. I would just like to take a moment to thank Dr. Macklin, his district leadership team, and so many SSD educators for their extraordinary partnership with SEF. We are grateful to work with all the dedicated SSD staff across the county in so many ways with a singular mission, empowering our students by providing the tools and opportunities they need to succeed both inside and out of the classroom. Thank you for what you do, and I look forward to this evening.
Thank you so much. And I skipped our first person, that's Andrew Black.
Greetings, governing council members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Andrew Black, and I've been a teacher with SSD since I graduated college in 2002, and have been a member of SDNEA for just as long. It is impressive to see so many members of the governing council, Board of Education, and SSD administrators that have been around for just as long. This is my inaugural year as a member of the SDNEA negotiations team, and it has been a learning experience to see the mechanics of negotiations and viewing the contract as a living document that the negotiation teams have shaped and given direction. This experience has also led me to reflect on those that have come before, the decisions that have been made and approved of, and a testament to this lineage is the signature pages at the beginning of each evolution of this relationship between SSD and its employees. If we hold the rough timeline of language being negotiated every 3 years, this contract has evolved 9 times in my career, and I voted to ratify the work of each of these negotiation teams. But that also means that all of the previous evolutions of this contract were ratified, voted, and approved in the same fashion. And this creates a golden thread that binds many in this room, those on the board, superintendents, and negotiation teams, to the decisions made today, to those that have been made in the past. While some hide behind the phrases of previous administrations or blame the living wage for SSD employees for this financial emergency, where is the accountability and ownership of all the other decisions that are made outside of this contract, past and present, as it is part of the larger story? I can proudly say that this will be my first time that I'll be able to put my name to a contract page, but I ask, where are those that have signed in the past and what roles are they playing today? So I ask you all to vote no on the proposed budget, not just because of the salary freeze, but for the accountability and accuracy in its information. And then I ask you all, what will be the legacy that you all leave behind? Thank you.
Next up, we have Garrett Meese.
Fellow council members, the press, and those behind me. Based on the email we received this past week, I'm glad that the chair of this council has finally realized the need to correct her own mistakes. Accountability. Although I am still awaiting a public apology for the letter she sent out to all of you 3 years ago, defaming me regarding my warnings about our current situation, not only for myself, but for the taxpayers of St. Louis County. We can either support the corrective actions required to repair the damage created 3 years ago, or we can tie a boat anchor to Dr. Macklin's hands and throw him overboard. A little later this evening, we have another choice to make as well. That is either to show that we have learned our lesson from the mistakes that were made and maintain stability on the SSD board, or put the fox in the hen house and dump a rocket fuel on the brush fire that you created. I find it ironic that in the news this week, Parkway School District has announced that they are facing some financial difficulties, as are many of the other 14 districts that you represent. I bring this to your attention because the district representative that made the motion to approve the budget 3 years ago is from the same district tied to the candidate that is beholden to the very negotiation methods that created this SSD crisis, as well as their own financial problems. I guess we will see who has learned from their mistakes and those who still suffer from cognitive dissonance. As of, well, on a positive note, I'm very happy to finally see mostly full participation from the partner districts supported by SSD.
Thank you. Next up, we have Paul Kaufman.
I know the 15-minute clock is running, but since I'm referencing these documents, if I could get assistance passing these out to our board members, please.
Sorry.
Good evening, members of the Governing Council. I'm giving a statement regarding the budget being presented to you this evening, and I am asking that you vote no on the budget for the following reasons, primarily consisting of accuracy and forecasting projections that are not lining up with the goals as far as having a transparent budget where everything is known as far as where the dollars are going. First, I want to draw your attention to page 33 of tonight's budget, which is the second page attached that I provided. Please note the revenue projection for county, state, and federal revenues in the budget forecast. There is a $0 growth for all four funds for the next 3 years. Do you believe it is realistic that a $0 growth is going to happen? Nevertheless, this is the budget forecast from our CFO, and which was also approved by our Board of Education. Flat revenues will create a negative fund balance, which is what's predicted at the bottom of the CFO's projections. But if the revenue projections are consistently wrong, which attachments at the ends do show that, then the fund balance will be wrong. The third page that you see tonight is from the June 2025 Governing Council presentation that was made last June. The CFO projected an assessed valuation of St. Louis County that would increase up to $40.17 billion. 3 months later, the CFO admitted her estimate was 1 billion, that's with a B, too high. And on the fourth page, lowered the evaluation and rolled back the levy. This levy rollback has led to a shortfall in local revenues by millions of dollars, as demonstrated on the first page, where you see less than a 1% growth in local tax revenue. This rollback has cost millions of dollars, and the CFO has not presented a clear plan on how to get that money back, as Parkway did when they faced a similar situation. Yet staff are facing a freeze as the miscalculation. In the next attachment that you see, the district is asking for your approval of nearly 10 million for classroom staff and another 6 million for paras. When asked who gets the money if staff are frozen, the response at the board meeting was, well, we need to fill every vacancy and budget all staffing requests. Last year, the district had 214 retirements and resignations, and they reported to union officials that they had only 100 new employees at new orientation last year. Is given the existing staff shortages and the current freeze, how likely is it that SSD will meet its staffing needs with the millions that's being requested? The state constitution, which is the next attachment, lists 3 criteria for school to be classified as financially distressed. SSD meets none of them. The determining factor is the ASBR from the previous year, and SSDs was at 41.25% or $270 million in reserves. Even if you think they're going to go 83 million in the hole, which they're projecting, that still leaves 190. Isn't that enough to give a raise to employees? The district leadership doesn't think so. In a June 2020 email, Dr. Cuneo sent a memo to staff saying, we were also under a financial emergency with 325 million in reserves. We believe that if you have the time and the ability to ensure before fiscal year 26-27 that the budget is 100% accurate, and vote no.
We have Jim Pittrick.
I'm a parent. I'm not a teacher. I'm not an aide. Righting the ship is an odd slogan for what is going on within SSD. My almost 50 years, I've learned that the best leaders are the ones who are the first to dive in, to be in the struggle with the people they're supposed to lead. George Washington, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Mandela, all led within the struggle. I can think of more than 282,000 reasons this is not the case within SSD. And yet the number 0 is heavy on my heart right now. 0 is a powerful number. When the answer to a question is 0, it reveals things. It lays bare what the truth is more than words and slogans ever can. The top of the SSD org chart says students, family, staff, schools, and community. Above the general counsel, governing council, sorry, and above the board, and then above Dr. Macklin. 0 is how much of that seems to have been followed over the past year. So this budget proposal to freeze pay for teachers and aides, the people who actually care for the students and support families like mine, is a continuation of the 0 concern given to how the people at the top of the org chart are treated and impacted. How many times were parents asked their thoughts on teachers and aides being moved to different schools? 0. How many times were the teachers and aides consulted about how that might impact them or their students? 0. How many times were people at the top of the org chart asked if the relationships that exist within the schools matter? 0. How many of the board members who voted yes to freeze pay looked up at those teachers and aides in the room? 0. How many words of discussion before the vote, even after statement about how negative the impact would be? 0. Does the board realize it's the crew that rights the ship, not the captain? Due to quick action from the crew, the vote to freeze the pay of those who are riding the ship every day for students and families like mine, they deserve better. Our communities and schools are not some sort of experiment for theories. These are real people who give everything they have to these students. They build bonds and relationships, and those relationships matter more than you can imagine. I'm dumbfounded by the severing of those relationships because that's a great way to produce better outcomes and lower costs. Good relationships drive people to greater heights than they could or otherwise would dare to rise to on their own. These teachers and aides know that. I hope that that is realized by the council and the board and Dr. Macklin today. 0 for teachers, aides, and the rest of us at the top of your org chart is unacceptable. It's an unacceptable number, whether it's about compensation, consideration, or communication. 0 is a failing grade.
Thank you
Do
for your
not
time.
fail.
Gray present.
I'll take his time if it's not.
Good evening to everyone in their respected positions. I appreciate you giving me this platform. My name is Angie Gray. I've been employed since 1998. I work in the Human Resources Department, so I am privy to a lot of the transactions that goes on here. The money wasted in this district has been a slap in the face to not only the communities that entrust us with their children and tax dollars, but also to the many staff members that go above and beyond to make sure that we truly function according to the true calling of what SSD used to represent. I am aware of the proposed financial freeze that has plagued the many union groups. And although I stand with each and every one of them, I can only truly speak on behalf of CESPA. This district has wasted a lot of money. $24,000 were offered to our administrators who was willing to leave at the end of their contract if they would retire. If you know that you have a financial situation, a financial hardship, why would you give away $24,000 to 11 administrators when you could have just eliminated the position? Also, we have 25 current international staff teachers that are not certified to be in the positions that they're in. Only one of the 25 has an actual DESE teaching cert, but they receive a certified teacher salary when our staff could be receiving those funds. Also, we paid $90,000 per session for a motivational speaker. That motivational speaker also charged for the literature that was given out. That speaker received over $430,000. Not one motivation went through our district because after that and before that, we continue to lose staff. In the HR department, we're getting people resigning 2 to 3 times a day.
Thank you for your time. I apologize, we are at time, 15 minutes has elapsed. So we will move on to our next agenda item. Next on the agenda is the Parent Advisory Council. We have not received any information from the PAC, so there will be no PAC update tonight. Next up on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. We recognize and there was a request tonight as there are many new alternates here in attendance this evening, and that the full governing council orientation happens at our September meeting. However, we do want to provide just a brief overview for these alternates tonight who are here. And again, this was a request of who makes up governing council. So governing council is a 22-member board, and each of those members serve from our partner school districts. What does governing council do? Well, and when you take a look at the ask of the Senate bill here, they are to elect the members of the Board of Education, which will happen tonight. They also approved the SSD budget, and they also approved the SSD Comprehensive School Improvement Plan. And you will hear 2 presentations about those tonight. Typically, Governing Council meets 4 times a year with the purpose of really listening and taking care of all of the other governing business that is related to SSD. This year, that was 5 times a year. And I know that there may be a request tonight to meet more than 4 times a year from Governing Council members. It is also just to make a note here, just as it relates to the Governing Council member, includes also serving as an advocate for students and a liaison really between their partner and the SSD body here. Tonight, you're going to hear 2 presentations here. You will first see a report from CFO Cindy Rahman. See if Cindy Rahman can come to the podium, who will present the FY27 budget. And then you will hear from Dr. Molly Bolton, who is our Chief of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability, who will present the strategic plan and CSIP. So tonight I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Rahman. I also want to note here that before Cindy speaks, there was communication that was sent out here just regarding state statute 67.0.0, which if the budget is not approved tonight, then that would under that operating state statute, that means that SSD would fall back to its or have its current budget in place. And so that's key factors to know tonight. Whatever the decision is, what that really means. I think the next question that I have been asked this week is really just regarding what does those numbers really look like as relates to the budget, and what is the increase and what takes place. And Cindy's going to get into that tonight. But I will tell you, there are 67 new positions that directly support students and school operations. There are also transportation additions on. There's also partnered with Midwest Educational Transportation there to provide more drivers for our students. And then just the ADA accessibility needs that are also there as it relates to plumbing and mechanical and infrastructure needs. Turn over Cindy Rock.
Thank you, Dr. Macklin. Good evening, governing council members. Tonight, we're going to do a high-level review of the fiscal year 27 budget as we dived into it much deeper at the retreat. So you should have copies of the budget at your location. In addition, a copy of the governing council questions that were submitted and that district leadership team responded to. And then I also want to bring your attention to a third document that should be at your table as well. We did a couple activities during our retreat in May, on May 18th. And we wanted to make sure you guys knew that we were paying attention to what you provided during that activity. So we wanted to make sure that you had feedback regarding those activities during that evening. So those are the three documents that you'll have at your site. So just some high level takeaways regarding the fiscal year 27 budget. We know that revenues are decreasing. There's a lot of economical things going on. We know in our budget, we have projected a sales tax decrease, primarily due to the combination of weighted average membership and weighted average daily attendance. We have also projected a decrease in investment earnings because we also know that there are challenges with the federal Open Market Committee and the interest rates that are out and being set by the federal government, as well as we have reduced fund balances. So when you have less money to invest, you end up with less investment earnings. In addition, at the close of the 2026 General Assembly, the state legislature did not fully fund education. And so there are decreases within the basic formula amount, as well as decreases regarding transportation aid, as they were not fully funded by the state. Our expenditures are increasing, and we wanted to make sure that we could defend a lot of our numbers. And so we are budgeting full staffing. All of the vacancies, as we talked about at the retreat, have been budgeted in this budget document. No salary increases are reflected in the budget document, and we will pay attention to those vacancies throughout the year. Stipends are also included. Some of that terminology might be our miscellaneous pays that are presented, as well as our substitute budget has been decreased as it will be offset by those vacancies. So as we evaluate vacancies, if they're not filled and filled with subs, we will move those budgets out of salaries into substitutes. And then purchase services are increasing due to various contractual agreements that we have, as well as the need for additional purchase of services for different categories within our district. Regarding the operating funds, none of the information has changed financially. We are still projecting an $82.5 million deficit in the operating funds. And so again, this is the same slide that was presented at the retreat on May 18th. Nothing has changed financially. And then the capital projects fund, again, nothing has changed financially. It's still the same revenues and expenditures with the projected slight deficit. $1 million is a deficit, but for the most part, some projects are all timing. And so we do consider that technically a balanced budget going forward, because we know that some projects won't get completed by year end and will carry forward. I do want to take a moment just to talk about the fact that our fund balance may have been 41% at June 30th, 2025, and it may have been that $250 million mark. But we are 11 months into fiscal year 26, and that fund balance has decreased throughout the year. And we are projecting around a 33 to 34% fund balance by the time we get to June 30th of 2026. So I want you guys to be clear that as we dip into what that fund balance or what districts would call a savings, the closer we get to that 30% fund balance level, the closer we're going to be to need to do short-term borrowing when it comes in the fall. So we will keep an eye on that. We will keep the Board of Education and the Governing Council informed, but we are going to be prepared to do short-term borrowing come the fall. In addition, what I would clarify regarding the, if,
Is she finished?
just a second, what I would clarify regarding the budget, if it's not approved tonight, that means we do fall back on the 25-26 budget that we're currently operating under. What I want to clarify to the board is that although salary increases were included in the 25-26 budget, that's because we were moving from 24-25 salaries to 25-26 salaries. If we go back to the 25-26 budget, we go back to what people were making for that fiscal year. There's nothing in there. The salaries will stay the same. The purchase services amounts will stay the same. So it really will tie the hands of the district moving forward with some of the things that we need to do to start the new fiscal year. So.
So I know with the special school district, along with most of the other districts around this table, have a fund balance minimum policy and that is the 30%, I believe. And then what is the actions that need to be taken at that point? Because if we don't change anything, we're gonna get hit 30% like really soon. We're still gonna hit 30%, but what is that automatically had to trigger anyway? Because that is kind of how we indicate whether or not we're in a financial pickle, right? Unbalanced minimum policy.
So our fund balance minimum policy does not actually have a number in it because we're going to do the analysis each year. So DESE has a fund balance analysis that you can do dictated by them. We've gone through that analysis every year after the annual secretary of the board report has been produced by DESE for us. And so we analyze that every year, and it is between that 30 and 35% range. So although we don't have a number in there, we do an analysis each year based off of DESE's calculation to determine where we need to be. And right now it is between that 30 and 35%. As to a plan, that is part of why we have our Riding the Ship plan, how we've started, and we continually evaluate any strategies that we can. We have a budgetary task force that is evaluating different options and stuff. So we are constantly having conversations as to how that Riding the Ship plan should evolve or change in order to try to get us back to a balanced budget. That has got to be the goal, is to get us to a balanced budget situation.
And Garrett, I will say that to those pieces is that we are in a space and place, you all, where we are going to have to get some assistance. If you look at I think just this year, and again, this is not only St. Louis County, but St. Charles County. And some of you know this very, very well because it falls in your area of expertise. Bayless, Clayton, Ferguson, Florissant, Fox, Jefferson County, Lawndale, Riverview, and Washington all went on and asked for some kind of assistance, not necessarily tax levy, but some kind of assistance. And I can tell you just the revenue numbers that are coming from the state, there will be a lot more in St. Louis County. So we are going to have to go out and ask for some assistance. We have looked at almost $30 million in reductions that we were able to do, not all necessarily staffing reductions, but some kind of reductions, whether that's looking at contracts. We've also moved 5 cents to 3.5 cents, which is about $3 million annually that we've used in our capital projects. But to talk about next steps is we're going to have to do more. And the more is not there. So we will have to go out for, as we talk about a plan, Patrick, what next steps will be, we'll have to go out for some assistance.
I had 2 questions. The first one can be for either you or Dr. Macklin. Dr. Macklin said 67 student-facing positions. I don't want to misquote you. Is that correct?
Correct.
The vacancies are above that. Is that 67 additional, or can you explain that a little bit to me really quick?
That number is included in the 313 vacancies that are budgeted in the budget.
Okay, and I want to ask one question about passing of the budget. If the governing council were not to approve this budget and we still have those vacancies, it would be filled by professional services and subs at that point, Is that answerable of a question? So if the governing council voted no, how would you fill those positions?
So if the governing council votes no, those 313 vacancies are not budgeted
Okay,
because we would revert back to whatever is currently in the 25-26 budget.
in those 313
Whatever
positions.
positions are in the 25-26 budget. Well, they could be open or vacant.
I want to be clear, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, I'm just trying to understand. So those are. There are 504 IEP plans that have to be met for students. A lot of those positions are student facing. We are federally required to fill them. What happens?
So if those positions, which if they're
Yes.
filled with a sub,
Yes,
the budget is either in the sub budget or in the salary, right?
yes, absolutely.
So the goal would be to fill it
Mhm.
with a full-time teacher, para, staff member, and not have to sub it out.
Okay, understood. My bad. I apologize. I got confused.
Carrie.
I don't know who's next.
What role, you spoke about the Financial Advisory Committee, what role do they have in this current budget?
The budgetary task force, we met quarterly and they provided various ideas, brainstorming ideas, and some of them we were already doing or had already on the table, and some of them were new things to look at. So some of that was already incorporated in here because we were already moving in that direction for some of their ideas.
Teresa. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you.
I'm confused on, you said that if we do not approve tonight's budget, that we would revert back to the 25-26 school year budget.
Correct.
But I'm sorry, but don't we do revisions throughout the year? So will we revert back to the last revision or the budget that we had at the beginning of the 25-26 school year?
I don't know that the statute's clear on that, and I'll be honest, I've never had a district that's had to revert back to a previous year's budget. So I'd want to get clarification. I would assume it could be the adjusted budget as is currently after adjustments and everything.
Why would it be that? I mean, it's only, that budget is only there because we made changes because we didn't fill positions, and so we kind of had to juggle some things around, or some money came in or that we weren't expecting, or some money went out that we weren't expecting, something like that. Why wouldn't we go back to the original budget that we had, that I would think was budgeting for some of these missing positions that we're talking about?
And I would want to seek legal opinion just to make sure we were doing the right thing. But right now, the adjusted budget is the board approved budget that we are operating
Could
under.
we leave this question as we're gonna seek legal opinion, and you guys find out about that? Cause I'd like to know how that will work. Because, and I mean, like, and then back to, Patrick's question of there would be 66 positions not filled, or student facing positions not filled. So you're saying that this budget that we are approving is this budget that you're asking us to approve will provide for how many? 216, what did they say?
It's 300.
300 positions that aren't currently filled, we will be able to fill, but if we don't approve the budget, only 66 won't be filled. There are other 240 something will be filled. I'm not understanding that part.
All right, let me see how I can explain this. So the proposed budget for fiscal year 27 has the 313 vacancies budgeted in it, which includes the 60+ position vacancies and approved positions for fiscal year 27. If we don't approve fiscal year 27's budget, those 62 positions, they haven't been approved for fiscal year 26. So they're not in the 25-26 budget.
You can reduce 313 by 67.
Okay, so 200 some out of the 313 will still be. All right, and then my next question is, and then I'll shut up, is that it's June 1st. why are we saying we will automatically revert back to the 25-26 budget if the budget is not approved tonight? It seems to me we have 29 more days to figure this out.
The state statute 67.070 says that if a budget is not approved by June 30th, you revert back to the current budget that's in place.
Right, and we're June 1st, so don't we
Okay.
have time between
Agreed.
now and June 30th for something to be worked out? Because I think, I don't know how other people feel, but I'll tell you how I feel. I feel like my reasoning for voting no has, and I'm sorry, guys, but has nothing to do with the salary freeze. My reason for wanting to vote no is because I look at this budget and I think I don't see a plan to get out of it. And so I can ask people to take a salary freeze for 1 year, even 2 years. But how long, where are we at? Like, what is our plan? And I'm not seeing a plan that, I mean, we say riding the ship and we say pulling levers and we say doing things, but I mean, the truth is that the beginning of the year, we were talking, we absolutely will not be asking for a tax. And now we need a tax. I personally want to see what type of long-range planning is happening from the administration, because like, seems to me that what you're seeing today should have been predicted in September, because the tax problem, I mean, if you you guys follow the legislature, you know, I mean, that was Kehoe's whole thing was that he was gonna cut the formula. The amount, but we all knew we were gonna get some cuts coming towards us. So that's my problem with voting yes. My problem with voting yes is I want more concrete information that I don't feel was given even in the retreat.
So to initiate a response to that, I would say the budgeting process takes months. We started back in November and December, starting the whole plan of getting input from every department, every stakeholder about what they needed, what was going to be successful, right? So we met with every budget owner, principals, everybody, right? Getting input, reviewing budget requests. What do they need? We started a zero-based budget. What do you need for your students, for your schools? We build that, we have conversations, but keep in mind, the revenue concerns became much more apparent in January and February and very much more apparent in March. The revenue concerns were not as strong early on in the budget season as they ended up being after the senior property tax freeze, delays in delinquent taxes, the delays in protested taxes being received by districts. The revenue component got much more severe as we delved into the budget process.
Weren't we deficit spending the last 2 to 3 years though, by like $50 million?
Correct.
Yeah.
Those are the type of, like, I will admit to you, this is my second year on the board. I feel like I'm just now starting to understand what is going on here. And I dug into it really hard this time. And so that's why I have so many questions and so much pushback, because to me, I feel like we were being told everything's going good, the riding ship's going great. We're adjusting better than we even predicted. Bam, hold on a second. The Titanic just hit the iceberg. And that is kind of like how I feel from a person who's only in their second year and still trying to learn. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, and that's why I'm pushing back so much right now.
Shannon.
I'm still, I guess my main question, because I know a couple people have asked about the 60 something number out of the 313. How many of the 313 are student facing jobs? How many of those 313 are student facing? Because I work at my school district, the main thing is our students and our teachers being happy to teach those students. And my main concern is getting these students what they need, but at the same time, you have unhappy teachers, you have a bad climate at work, and may look bad now, they could look worse. You may have more vacancies next year. Sorry, it's all about them and our staff. You have happy staff, you have happy students, you have students succeeding. And it may have been in some of the paperwork you guys gave me. I'm sorry, we are on paperwork overload right now.
Page 196 of the budget document. If you have that handy,
Is that
lists
on
out
these
the positions for all the vacancies.
Okay, and is there, I'm sure it's in one of these things. I'm sure I read it in the big 200 something pages, but can you give me a rough estimate? Because I guess in my mind, if like only 60 of these, if 60 of these jobs to be filled are student facing, then why can't there be some kind of compromise here where we're not freezing up for however many years these teachers that are trying to work hard, they work hard already. I don't understand where.
You're basically saying, why couldn't we take non-student facing positions, eliminate
Yeah,
non-student
why can't we
facing
free up some of
positions
this
rather
budget
than
for,
66
yeah,
student facing
yes.
positions?
Katie, do you want to ask your question while they?
Yeah,
sorry.
so I'm sorry. So I just want to get clarification, since this is a very, I understand how long the budgeting process takes, but we do have until June 30th to turn in a final budget to DESE. So my question is, it's a big ask, but if the vote is no tonight, we do have a chance for the board and the governing council to come back together and pass another budget before June 30th. Is that correct?
Because of the process, I would say that it would be very, very difficult at this time.
So
And the board has already approved the budget?
Correct.
The board has already approved the budget. The final approval is of this body. So that would mean this body, today is June the 1st, so would have to come back before to approve it. But that doesn't mean that the budget that's been approved by the board will change.
Right, I think my understanding of policy though is if the budget can't be approved by the governing council, then the governing council goes back and works with the board to try to come up with a new budget.
I mean, otherwise, what's the point? Because otherwise you say, here you guys go, June 1st, pass this budget, or we have last year's budget. I mean, it's kind of being held hostage or something, so.
I think we've never been in this place before. I mean, I've been on this body for many years, and we've never been in this place before.
Not sure.
Where we have had to really face the financial hurdles that we're facing from, not only from the legislature, from our local taxing bodies, as well as things that are being felt all across the state. I think it has been said over and over, and I think some of us, and I said it the last meeting and I'll say it again tonight, there's not just one body that is being that is, taking a salary freeze. There's 5 negotiating bodies, and to do one and not the others it's inequitable. So, and it does not change the fact that the money is not there to fund in the long term. So I think that we all, if you're not, and if you haven't been paying attention to the news, all across the state, school districts are facing these very same things. We are facing, this is the first district in St. Louis County in our region that is facing these hurdles. So I think that it is incumbent upon us all to make sure that it's SSD today. It could be Ladue, Parkway, U City, Lindbergh tomorrow. So I think that it's important that we pay attention to what is happening on the external as well as on the internal. We have the writing of the ship, reduce the budget by over $100 million. But you cannot continue to reduce the budget and try to get close to a balanced budget when all of the external factors around you continue to change and continue to change what's coming in. And I think that's what we're feeling, and that's what has occurred. So I don't think that it's not one thing and not the other. So, I mean, I think that we have to look at the whole entirety of the budget. We have to look at all of the factors. So if we have a responsibility tonight to either approve or not approve this budget. And that's basically what is before us. And I'm not here to say or sway anybody's decision, and you feel how you feel. But at the same time, we are all elected officials, and we are called to make hard decisions for our own district and hard decisions for special school districts, which we serve in this body as the governing council. So we have a vote to make tonight. And I think that at this point, we've all had our questions answered. It's time that we call for a vote.
Wait,
No, who had a question?
I still never got my number that I was.
Okay, so rough estimate, okay, because I'm trying to do math in my head. 290-ish out of the 313 are student facing.
How many applicants? Yeah, how many applicants? I agree. Who just asked that? How many applicants? I mean, like, we have openings. So are we, what if we don't fill them? Then we didn't give teachers a raise and we didn't fill these. So we filled those $13 to $16 million. Or they're not filled and it goes on us. That's my question. How do we know we're gonna fill them? We don't, but it's a little scary for me to be throwing all these numbers, and I know we have to vote tonight, but it's serious stuff. This is affecting students, it's affecting teachers, it's affecting people's lives, and it's a little overwhelming when I know we don't know how it's going to happen, and I know that all the districts may be having problems, but this district has had problems for the last couple of years. Mine doesn't. So it didn't just start this year. If anybody else's starts to have trouble this year, that's one thing, but our issues have been going on here for like the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm really having a hard time processing, trying to understand, like, how do we know that what are we gonna do with that $13 to $16 million if we don't fill that?
So if I remember correctly, the 313 vacancies, if we were to eliminate them and put the money back in,
We go back to a substitute cost. So 313 represents the total obligation that the district needs in order to serve students is what the budget is reflecting. Previous budgets did not factor in all those needs at times, may have not have been put at the right salary levels. So this budget represents 313 positions based at salaries of what people come in being hired at, as well as what is needed for students. Knowing that we probably won't fill some of those, there were some adjustments, reductions down on the substitute costs. That substitute cost will go up because there'll be those vacancies being filled. The savings from that salary goes to augment.
Do we have 313 subs? Do we have all those spots filled?
So again, the 313, if we were to just eliminate every vacancy, it would only add back about 9 million to the budget. We still have an $82.5 million
I
deficit.
understand, but $9 million is a lot of money to the people behind you. So,
And I respect that. But it doesn't get us to a balanced budget. We still are deficit.
I understand the balanced budget, but I also have a heart. I hear a lot, my head and my heart are saying two different things right now. And everyone's talking about righting the ship, and yes, we need to right the ship, but it's something, it's not a phrase that needs to be capitalized with a capital R and a capital S. It's something that, like, we need to, the main thing is the main thing with the kids, the teachers, getting them the education they need. And I'm just having a hard time grasping this. I don't know how to put it into words. It's very overwhelming. And a budget's a budget, but people are people that are a little bit more important sometimes.
I would agree with you. And coming from educators, I respect educators and I do believe they should be paid. But I also have to be financially stable and make sure there's a district for our teachers and our staff and our students to attend in the future.
I understand you're trying to do their job, but they're trying to do their job too. And how do we know, is this freeze 1 year? Is this freeze 4 years? How do you justify this year after year?
We'll evaluate it annually.
But I mean, I noticed, like, I think it was page 83, that it didn't look like that there was going to be, if you look at page 83, I think of the budget, something on there wasn't any, it looked like that they hadn't projected any type of raises, unless I read it wrong. I don't have it in front of me, for the next up to like 2030 or something.
We did not include raises in projections because we also are continuing to work to negotiate in good faith. And we don't want to put a number out there and then it happens or it doesn't happen or whatever.
So our teachers might not get raises for 4 years or steps. That's what it looked like on paper, and that's what you guys are asking me to look at.
So I think one of the challenges that CFO Ryland was also trying to share with you guys this evening, and it may have been lost in some of the communication, but I've worked in education for a long time. This is seriously my first time that I've ever seen that the state tells you one thing
Yes.
and totally drastically goes a different direction. The governor himself said that he was going to hold funding stable for schools and he was not going to change anything in his plan. So we went with that guidance. We were working through that guidance. And then they came and they said, we can't fund the state adequacy target. They'd already sent out information to districts telling them that they were going to fund districts at the 7145 and then came back and said, we're hoping that we can hold on to 6,900 this year.
Like 2 weeks later.
SSD is a little bit lucky in the fact that it's not on the formula, it's in a hold harmless status. So there'll be more districts that'll start to feel the switch of the reduced revenue coming in from the state side of things. The other part of that too is that as the budget cycle continued with the state legislators, budget came back even more whacked for education. $390 million reduced out of the state budget from the current year to next year for education. That's going to impact all 500 plus districts in the state of Missouri. So in one aspect, you're being told by the government that we're going to fund education, we believe in it, but then they're cutting it off in different directions. We were also told that transportation is going to be funded less. Transportation's never been 100% funded. It's 75%, and they're funding at 100% of the 75%. Next year, they're telling us that they're going to fund transportation for students at 75% of the 75% they're currently funding.
I understand all that, but I can guarantee you my district won't be freezing my teachers' pay because we need them.
I just want to clarify, because I heard you say it really clearly, that those 313 positions are necessary to meet the needs of students across the 22 partner districts.
That is what, yes.
So the idea of putting that $9 million back into salaries of other staff, to me, means you're willing to sacrifice kids in districts like mine that would go understaffed.
That's not what she said. She said it was either gonna be paid as teacher. Somebody else. It's either teachers
I know
or
that's what they're
substitute
saying.
teachers.
That's what they're saying. But some of our governing council colleagues are suggesting we put that money back to pay other staff. And
Okay.
I don't agree with that.
I understand that too, and I don't disagree with that myself, because the reality is the people who weren't here 3 years ago, this is not to you. Okay, the people sitting around this table caused this problem.
Okay, well, we've heard
Okay.
this 1,000
We're not
times.
going there.
So-
We are not going there.
No. But beyond that, we don't approve it, it reverts back. And it reverts back, and what I heard said earlier, the pay increases weren't included in that budget either.
Correct.
So they're still not gonna get a pay increase, because it's not in the budget.
Right.
And it's still gonna be the recommendation not to increase the pay because it's not gonna work.
Why are we only concerned with the pay increases? Why are we not looking at this budget and asking, where do we get out, how do we get out of this? What is the plan to get out of this? Because I still have heard a lot of beautiful sentences and nothing that's given any concrete telling us the plan to actually get out of this. I mean, other than we're gonna go for a tax increase, which all of it, I mean, I know I asked at least a year ago. And we're going to, there's been $30 million worth of cuts, but we haven't even been told what that $30 million is. Like, my concern is transparency and a plan to move forward, because if you think that this state, if you think that this is the end of the state cutting your budgets, it's just the beginning, folks. I mean, like it's coming. So we're going to have to locally fund schools. And like, there has to be some type of plan of what we're gonna do. We cannot sit around and say that we didn't know that the state was gonna cut our budget, because I mean, every politician in Jefferson City sits around and talks about how they can screw a school district. So.
Patrick and then Karen.
So just to say something really quick, to point out, we do not legally know if we would revert back to the initial budget or the amended budget. We don't know that. Expecting you to know that is unfair. State statute says that we would roll back to a budget. We do not know which one. However, they can, failure to pass a budget by July 1, prior appropriations temporarily continue, and then a later adoption of a new or current budget would supersede the temporarily reappropriated budget. I'm simply putting that out there, that the governing council, as Keisha pointed out, we can't actually craft the budget. We only approve what is presented to us. So Keisha pointed that out. It's in the board could hypothetically change things, but I do want to point this out. I hear what you're saying about the plan. I have asked a lot of questions. I want to see a plan too. I believe Dr. Macklin told us part of the plan. The plan that Dr. Macklin briefly mentioned was that we are going to have to potentially go to the community to fix this via, he said a bond or a levy, but probably a levy. Dr. Macklin, that is what you said, correct? That is the potential budget solution we're talking about.
We're going to have to get some assistance, yes.
Okay, so assistance, and like, I understand, I don't wanna, asking Dr. Macklin to formulate a levy plan is unfair, but that is now an option, and for the past 3 years, we discussed that was not being investigated. You cannot complete survey work in a month, you cannot ask them to craft that messaging in a month. I understand, like, I can be pragmatic about having to go to the voters. I understand the position we're in and that many other districts are in a similar situation. So I just wanted to point that out. Yes, the board could create a new budget, however, we don't, in our authority, get to necessarily influence that. And that I also asked Dr. Macklin, I said, it was an administrative reorganization coming, and he said board policy dictates that and we would learn more later. And that is where we are at, but the plan, at least as we all understand it now, is the first time we are talking about a tax levy is now.
Well, because
that is the plan, though. That is actually the plan you're speaking of.
And the reason why I say that is because the amount of levers that would be needed to pull, and whatever those levers could be. So if you're looking at enrollment trends, if you're looking at leasing agreements, if you're looking at subscriptions is $182,000, which is 0.28% of a $630 million budget. There's not enough of that, you all, to make an impact on $82 million deficit spending. There just isn't. You have to overcome the $100 million revenue increase. And so to overcome those pieces, you're gonna have to go and get assistance. And that's why I say that.
Do you mean expense or revenue?
Decrease. Revenue
Okay,
decrease.
sorry, I apologize. Thank you.
Revenue decrease.
Carrie.
I don't think there's one person sitting around this table that doesn't think that the teachers in the audience, the paras, the secretaries deserve. I think I'm speaking for all.
Yes.
But we all agree that people deserve to have an increase in salary.
Yes.
However, we are charged to make really hard physically decisions for districts. We have been, or for special school districts, we have been presented this graph, which everyone has seen over and over again, showing which direction we're going in. So we know what direction we were going in, and we know that something along the lines of a levy or something would have to happen to right the ship. There's no more cutting. There's not much cutting left to do. So, you know, when we're looking at student facing positions, I mean, this is impacting students. I don't know about you, but I'd rather have a certified teacher teaching my kids a substitute. So just something to think about.
Gary, I agree.
I think we have,
Can I just have one more question? Can you address the matter of these motivational speakers? Is that in the current budget? We get the budget, we get, you know, total dollars, but actually only things we're not always looking into. Is there a budget in this that we're considering tonight, budgeting motivational speakers for the district?
don't think we included anything motivational or some of the PD that's been happening in the past. But we do have to spend 1% of the basic formula money on professional development for our certified staff. So those things are still in the budget.
Can we call for, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. Thank you for the budget presentation. Molly Bolton with the CSIP presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Governing Council. My name is Molly Bolton, and I am the Chief of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability. And this evening, I will be reviewing our third quarter updates for our strategic and our comprehensive school improvement plan.
Can you pull the mic?
Sorry,
There
a
you go.
little bit shorter. All right. So as I said, this will be the third quarter update of this year for our CSIP and strategic plan. Just a reminder, and for those of you who are new to the council, this is our fourth year of our 5-year strategic and CSIP plan. This next slide is one that tells the difference between a strategic and a CSIP plan. And so just to summarize this quickly, your strategic plan really looks at your district as a whole, the operational side as well as the instructional side, where your comprehensive school improvement or CSIP plan focuses a little bit more in on students and student achievement. So we will begin with our strategic plan. Our first goal in our strategic plan is implementing effective strategic database systems that efficiently and equitably support instruction and operations. And so with that, as I reported last quarter, we are working through a grant with MoreNet, and we are developing a system where we can share partner district student achievement information as well as attendance information so that our staff only has to go to a one place for a lot of their student data to help them make student data informed decisions. The work on this has been very promising. I think we've gotten farther than we have for quite some time. Right now, we are doing a pilot with Hancock, and that data has been uploaded into the system as well as SSD's data. We have been in talks with many of the other school districts, as you can see here, and we'll be looking to partner with several other school districts next year for this project. Our second goal is around resources. And so looking at strategy 2.2, that is also dovetailing into our goal 1, where then once we have that data in those system, in that data warehouse system, we will be able then to continue to use that data and work on looking at some of those resources connected to that. Also, this strategy is also working on the workload dashboard. And so we completed focus groups during third quarter with all of our groups, targeted focus groups to get feedback, and we are working on a continuous improvement cycle for that for the following year. As we look at our goal 3, all of these strategies have been accomplished, and those were reported out at last quarter. We'll move now to our CSIP plan updates. Our first CSIP goal is proactively planning for student success. We do have 3 strategies under that goal. The first is preparing students with skills for post-secondary outcomes. And this really centers around our Charting the Life course IEP framework. We will be rolling that out with our elementary folks next year. For those who haven't been trained yet, we do have a lot of elementary folks who have already been trained. And you'll also see that there was a speech language pathologist or SLP training specifically for students who have speech-only diagnosis, because when you look at their long-range planning, it may look a little different than some of our students with other disability types. And so we worked very closely with a group of speech-language pathologists to determine the most effective way to use the Charting the Life Course framework for that group. You can see next steps will be working on early childhood for our districts that we service early childhood special education for, as well as doing those feedback cycles. As we look down to 1.2, that again is tying back to that data warehouse in our strategic plan 1. And we are looking to create some protocols to really look at our student data along with our resource allocation and the impact that that is having. When we look at our 1.3, that is our collaborative partner planning, with our partners. They also completed some focus groups in February and presented to the superintendent's roundtable and are in the process of getting some feedback and are working on action plans from the feedback that they've gotten from surveys as well as those focus groups. Moving on to goal 2 in the CSIP. This is where we're looking at aligning and coordinating decision-making. When we look at 2.1, that's really where we're starting to look at programming around the county. Our programming varies very heavily around the county. And so we are working on drafting some guidance around student programming for the county. And then we would be developing that rollout plan as well as that training. When we look at strategy 2.2, that is our evidence-based practices that we are required to implement according to ESSA as well as IDEA. Right now, we are working through an improvement cycle, which will be ready to roll out on the intervention selection tool, which assists our staff in determining what is the best intervention for a student profile. Also, we are working on looking at also our evidence-based practice tool that we've developed. We've received feedback on that, and those updates will also be finalized before the beginning of school. And then our last strategy around student mobility has also been completed. So we do have our key performance indicators. Our district leadership did do a third quarter review and really focused in on our results from our panorama survey from our staff, our families, and our students, as well as looking at our tiered monitoring results. Those tiered monitoring results are the state audits that they do with a cohort of districts every year. It's a 3-year cycle where they look at where we stand with compliance. This next slide, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this is just for your information. This is the process overview of when we are doing a data review. These are the things that we take into consideration. And then the next slide does talk about the indicator rating protocol and how you can kind of see, again, this is an informational slide only for the process that we use as we're reviewing this KPI data. So I have included much of our KPI dashboard in this next couple slides. What you can see with this first slide here, our STAR reading and STAR math scores are updated Q2 and Q4, so there are no new updates for Q3. Some things I would point out here, you will notice our IEP, our family IEP service average favorability ratings have increased. When we look at some of the reasons why that could be is when families have participated in the Charting the Life course structure for IEPs, we do find they tend to rate their experience with the IEP team more favorably. You will also see the panorama scores down here as well. And where those are falling, they're not major significant changes. There are some dips, And, but we are not significant for that review. Our next slide does talk about our workforce, really looking at the contracted hours that classroom teachers and SLPs, are in and out of the classroom. And so you can see the first one is talking around leaves. And then the second one is talking more around all types of leave, which would include professional learning. Our last slide on this is our updated annual results. And so you can see there, these are KPIs that only have annual reporting. The state has finally completed reports from last school year. So we were able to fill this in a little bit more completely than we were at semester because we were still waiting on some state data. This will be one that we spend a lot of time on in the fourth quarter this time. And I will open it up for questions.
Sheila, thank you. Thank you for your report. CSIP goal number 1 says proactively plan for student success. And then the strategy 1.1, which is found on page 9, says prepare students with the skills and planning needed for positive post-school and program outcomes.
Yes.
So you mentioned that there's some training planned for elementary. And so I was wondering, I guess I'm curious to know about the decision to start there. I think everybody needs to get it.
Yeah, we actually started with our secondary.
Okay.
So high school and middle schools were, that was our focus for last year. However, we did have some elementaries. And actually the year before that, we had a few districts go through completely. And so, yes, so we have already done secondary and now we're moving to elementaries who have not already been trained.
I was worried that everybody was gonna have, like all these other kids were gonna have to graduate without that support.
No, we started at the secondary level.
Okay, thank you.
On the annual results toward the end here.
Yes.
Is the 4-year graduation rate for SSD?
Yes. So many of our students are, because of IDEA, we do hold them in we hold them through age 21. We're able to service them through age 21 because of additional post-secondary training that they can still get. And so we have a much lower number of students who are in that traditional 4-year cohort compared to our 5, 6, and 7-year cohorts. And so that number has decreased. And then with lower numbers, if you lose a few, if a few do drop out, then that increases your, that lowers your percentage pretty significantly. Does that make sense?
Yes, I guess I would have expected that explanation, would have expected to see the 4-year graduation rate declining, then a 7-year graduation rate increasing over that time.
But again, your number in that cohort increases for that 7-year. Does that make sense? Okay, and I could get you some more exact numbers if you'd like that. Okay.
Are there any additional questions for Dr. Bolton? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the governing council? Hearing. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So to conclude the superintendent's report here, the Public Review Committee was going to present their final report tonight, and we have a couple of members on the Governing Council who serves on the PRC here, and I don't know if they want to speak to any of these pieces, but however, they needed more time to craft some of that work and some of those action items, and so that presentation will be going to the 623 business meeting for our Board of Education, and then we'll come back to the Governing Council in September. And so those pieces are there for the public review committee. I think just the last thing before I end the superintendent's report, I want to say that we understand that these are very, very hard decisions, and that everyone in this organization is valued, and everyone in this organization deserves more. I want to say that I think there's a misnomer that there is only a certain group or certain groups when you talk about the breadth and depth of this organization. This is a recommendation that, of course, looks at all the groups in this organization, because that is what needed, which administrators were first. There are 41 items, you all, 41 items that our budgetary task force took to heart, that are either in progress, have been completed, or are upcoming. And these 41 items are ones that are key factors in this organization. However, these 41 items are not going to solve the solution. We are at a space and place, unfortunately, because of loss of revenue, because of state funding, because of where we are. These 41 items are not going to do it. Well, then, Dr. Macklin, how come you didn't go for a tax levy, or how come the question about tax levy didn't happen 2 years ago? Because these 41 items it's about getting our house in order. I can't go and ask anyone for anything until we have looked at every single option, exhausted every single option. Because a tax levy does not just affect special school districts. And those 9 school districts that went and asked for something this year that were successful, when you throw 50 cents, 45 cents, another $1 on top of that, there's a different conversation. And so I know tonight is a hard decision. And I know tonight is a decision that is not taken lightly. But I want to say that we have done what we need to do, or try what we need to do here to ensure that we are in a better space and place. President Lee.
Does any of the members of the Public Review Committee want to make a comment on your progress or where you are?
I would prefer to, you can, if you want to, I choose to wait.
Can't hear you. All I would say is just that it's been a really rewarding experience serving on the Public Review Committee, and I feel like the committee is doing some really great work, and that the recommendations that are gonna come out of it are gonna be really helpful on a lot of levels.
I concur.
All right. Thank you. So hearing no further questions or comments, we'll proceed with tonight's action items. Our first action item is the FY 26 budget adjustments. Is there a motion to approve the FY 26 budget adjustments?
So moved, Hancock.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
No.
Motion carries.
First floor, was there another besides first floor?
After.
Thank you.
So that motion carries. The next action item is the approval of the FY 27 budget. Is there a motion to approve the FY 27 budget?
So moved. Melville.
Second, Hancock.
Any discussion?
I'd like to request that the vote take place by roll call.
This is the request was that the vote be made by roll call. This is a reminder that Senate Bill 687, page 3, number 3 clearly indicates unless a greater majority is otherwise required, that is in board elections, all actions of the governing council shall require a majority of the authorized members who represent at least 50% of the population of the district. In simple terms, we only need a population majority to pass or fail the motion. A roll call vote being requested. I now ask Recording Secretary Giles to perform the roll call vote.
Afton, no.
Afton,
No.
Bayless,
No.
Brentwood,
Yes.
Clayton,
Yes.
Ferguson Florissant,
No.
Hancock,
Yes.
Hazelwood,
Aye.
Jennings is absent, Kirkwood. I'm sorry?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. For the benefit of me, who's hard of hearing in one ear, and everyone else, let's be loud. Ladue,
Yes.
Lindbergh,
Yes.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Normandy,
Yes.
Parkway,
Yes.
Pattonville,
Yes. Yes.
Riverview Gardens,
Yes.
Rockwood,
Yes.
School District of University City,
Yes.
Valley Park,
No.
Webster Groves.
Yes.
86%, 87% of the districts, but the one that matters is the weight, and the weight has it, the weighted population has it. 875, 265 of 1,006,278.
So the motion carries. Next action item is the Special School District Board of Education runoff election. Now conduct the 2026 SSD Board of Education Director Sub-District 2 runoff election. I'll allow those leaving to depart. I will ask the candidates to the podium one at a time and allow 3 minutes for each candidate to articulate to the council, once again, why they're running for this seat and what attributes they bring to the table. Upon conclusion of their statement, I will allow 5 minutes for questions and answers based upon the questions received by governing council members. Then we will conduct a roll call vote for each candidate. Mr. McKittrick, please come to the podium and proceed with your statement.
Good evening. It's nice to meet the people that were not here in March, so nice to meet you all. My name is Bob McKittrick, and I am a resident of the Melville School District and a public school teacher of 25 years. I'm also a parent and a candidate for Sub-District 2 on the Board of Education. Like many people in our room, I care very deeply about the future of SSD. And you're right, it is not just a professional interest for me. This is a very personal interest for me. My daughter is an SSD student, and she benefits directly from the services that our district provides. As a father, I have a vested interest in ensuring that SSD remains strong, that it remains financially stable, and capable of providing exceptional services, not only for my daughter, but for every student and family that depends upon it, regardless of the zip code that they reside in. I believe SSD is one of the most important educational institutions in St. Louis County. It is truly unique. It allows us to pool our resources across the county and provide high-quality services to more than 20,000 students that rely on us every day. I wholeheartedly believe that this is the mission that is worth protecting. At the same time, it is impossible to ignore the challenges facing our district. We're experiencing some significant financial pressures. Employees are frustrated. Families have questions. Trust has been strained. I know the most recent salary freeze and ongoing budget conversations have created understandable anxiety among the many people who dedicate their lives to serving our students. What gives me hope, though, is that every group involved in these discussions ultimately want the same thing: outstanding outcomes for our students. Our teachers want it, our parents want it, our administrators want it, our board members want it, our partner districts want it. While we may disagree on how to solve our challenges, we all share this common purpose. If selected to serve, I'd like to be a voice for unity, for collaboration, and for transparency. As a classroom teacher who works directly with SSD students in co-taught classes, I understand the realities educators face every day. As a parent of an SSD student, I understand firsthand how these services are important to our students. Through my experience in educational leadership and governance, I understand that difficult decisions have to be made, but difficult decisions should always be accompanied by clear communication, thoughtful planning, and respect for the people that are affected by them. I believe SSD can successfully navigate these challenges. We must continue to stabilize our finances, rebuild trust with our employees, strengthen our relationships with our districts, and keep our students at the center of every decision that we make. I'm running because I believe in SSD. I believe in its mission. I believe in its employees, its students, and its future. As both an educator and parent of an SSD student, I have a personal stake in helping our district succeed. Together, I do believe that we can move forward, restore confidence, and ensure this remarkable district continues to serve St. Louis County for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Read to you the questions that were submitted by the governing council members. The first is related to salary determinations and approval. Who should hold ultimate responsibility for determining and approving salaries during the bargaining process? As a Board of Education member, what specific steps will you take to ensure this responsibility is clearly defined and effectively upheld moving forward?
I think in any salary negotiations, the Board of Education, we appoint the superintendent. And so the Board of Education should empower the administration to negotiate in good faith with our teachers. I think that once we appoint the Board of Education members to negotiate and then negotiate in good faith, my responsibility as a board member at that point, when they reach agreement, is to give a straight up or down vote. I feel like once we empower our bargaining team makes an agreement, I will make that vote. That doesn't mean I won't have questions for the administration. That means I won't, it doesn't mean I won't look at this from every possible angle. I am a deep thinker. I like to really dig in and, and get into the meat of things. But I do believe it's my responsibility to ensure that the process plays itself out.
The next question is transparency with partner districts. In what ways do you believe SSD can improve transparency with partner districts, particularly regarding staffing, budgeting, and policy changes?
I think it kind of starts with the board. If I'm elected as part of sub-district 2, I plan on communicating with the governing council members that are in my district. I want to have regular communication with them. There's no reason why I cannot meet, or anybody cannot meet with them once a month, once every few weeks. I also think that I need to communicate with the superintendents of that district as well. But I do think that reaching out, having that outreach, one of my responsibilities as a board member is to communicate with our partner districts, ask our partner districts what they need, how can we better serve you? Because that is that's our mission. That's why we're here. That's to serve our districts. So ongoing, regular communication. And then the stuff that I think a lot of us usually do, showing up at parent meetings, getting involved in the Parents Advisory Council, just being a face there to be around and to talk. But that would be what I would do as far as that goes, is regular communication.
Next question is, what do you see as the primary purpose of the partnership agreement? Given that a committee is currently reviewing this agreement, what recommendations would you offer for its improvement?
I think with our partnership agreement, I do think that we need to work, especially with recommendations, and we need to work more collaboratively. We need to communicate more. We need to be more transparent. I feel like we really need to take care of ourselves, because there's not going to be a whole lot of help from Jefferson City to take care of things for us. And so I think that really, when we look at the partnership agreement, these districts, we have to ask, what do you need? How can we better serve you? How can we help you? And so I really do think that as a board, we really need to reach out, have those conversations, talk, do whatever we can to make that work.
Okay, and how do you plan to build and maintain the trust of the community in your ability to serve as a responsible and effective steward of the SSD budget?
I think the main thing is to, when we're looking at a budget, to be honest, it has to be a balanced budget. I think that's what everybody wants, is a balanced budget. It's really, really hard to vote for an unbalanced budget. And honestly, one of the things that I kind of look at is, and one of the things I get a little concerned about is the tax anticipation note or the TAN. But I really think that when we have a surplus, we shouldn't spend it down on recurring expenses. We should spend it down on other expenses, capital expenses, things like that. And so, it's going to be hard to look at that and to not vote for something that would be a balanced budget to kind of balance us out.
So what are your views on increasing the frequency of joint work sessions between the Board of Education and the SSD Governing Council? And how do you believe these sessions could enhance collaboration and decision-making?
I think we'll get FaceTime with each other. We'll be able to talk to each other, interact with each other, find out what we need. I think that has been needed maybe for a while, but I think that our Board of Education and you, the Governing Council, we should be in lockstep with each other. We should have more frequent work sessions. We should, communicate with each other more. But we should be, all on the same page and lockstep, working with one another to make this work.
The next two questions are regarding conflicts of interest. If elected, how would you approach your fiduciary responsibility to the SSD and the taxpayers of St. Louis County that is in direct conflict with the union that caused this budgetary crisis that you are beholden to?
I am responsible as a board member to special school districts. That's what I would have to do. Special school districts is what I care about. The students of special school districts is what I care about. And so I can't compartmentalize. And you know what? Like, sometimes you gotta say no. Salary freezes are hard. To be honest with you, if I was gonna be completely transparent, I probably would have voted for a salary freeze. But when I voted for that salary freeze, that also accompanied with a plan and say, like, you're only going to be frozen for this long and not that much, not like 1 year, 2 years. I do it with transparency. And I hate to say this, but I wouldn't spring it on them on May 18th. I would spring it on them months before, because my wife was a teacher. She was frozen a couple of different times, but in every instance that she was frozen, her district, they told her, like, in February, you're going to be frozen. And so it wasn't a surprise. And so my responsibility is a special school district, no one else, because I'm a teacher of our students. My daughter goes here. My responsibility is to our district and nothing else.
Final question. The Missouri NEA's mission is to advocate for its members, while a school board member's legal duty is to the taxpayers and students. In Missouri, board members are often sued personally for breaches of confidentiality. How would an NEA leader properly handle the liability and ethical risk of being privy to the district's private legal strategies regarding labor negotiations and disputes?
I think very simply, when we talk about things in closed session, it's just that, it's in closed session. I can't share what goes on in closed session with anybody. That would be, you're right, that would be illegal. I could not do that. I would not have that conflict of interest at all. So, and one of the things about me, I've been in Parkway 25 years. I'm a very proud Parkway employee. I build relationships in Parkway. I'm known in Parkway for building relationships. And so I would never, under any circumstances, sell anybody short by communicating or doing anything that would be untoward the process. What goes on in closed session stays in closed session. And that's really the end of it. So there'll be no conflicts of interest with me.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Now I'll ask Dr. Cuneo to come to the podium and proceed with your statement.
Good evening. My name is Dan Cuneo. I'm a clinical psychologist. For 25 years, I worked with the Illinois Department of Mental Health. I served as the director of Chester Mental Health Center. It's Max Secure Hospital in Illinois. Once I left Chester, in fact, I was still at Chester at the time, I was asked to run for this board. I've been on this board since 2000. I've seen the good times in this board. I've seen some not as good times in this board. During that time period, I've had the pleasure to work with many superintendents, many different boards. This is probably, of the things that I've been on, one of the things that I'm most proud of. Why serve on this board? SSD is unbelievable. Most of the work that I had done for 25 years was in the state of Illinois. While the state of Missouri, in my opinion, does not do as well when kids get out of school, once they're 21 and out. We are remarkable at SSD. This is completely different here. The fact of being pooling resources, having it as it is here, this is unbelievable. People come to St. Louis County many times just because of the services for the disabled child. This is a remarkable place. To be part of this has truly been an honor for me. Why do I feel like that I would be good at this? One of which is I bring a historical concept to this. Two, I've seen some of the problems that we've had. And three, right now, I don't want to leave this half undone. We are in truly an awkward position right now financially. 3 years ago, we made some decisions. And when I say we, the board we were given information that was not entirely correct. And the board made some decisions on that. And whether I agreed or didn't agree at that time, I always believe if you're on a board, you agree with you deal with what the board agrees with. We passed some raises at that time, which were rather large, and we put ourselves in a long-term difficulty. Dr. Macklin is trying to right this ship now. I know there's some difficult decisions. And to tell somebody they're going to be froze, that's brutal because the cost of living is not froze. On the board, I don't see any way out of it when the other information was passed. I would like to stay with Dr. Macklin. I'd like to stay with this board and help right the ship. That's why I'm staying. That's why I'm running again. I find working with kids extremely important. My belief with kids throughout this entire time. Am I over my limit yet?
Yes.
I apologize. Go.
Okay, next I will ask you the same questions. First question, who should hold ultimate responsibility for determining and approving salaries during the bargaining process?
The
As a
board,
board-
the board's got to have full responsibility. Now.
I didn't finish the question.
Okay.
As a Board of Education member, what specific steps will you take to ensure this responsibility is clearly defined and effectively upheld moving forward?
The administration is going to end up appointing a group that's going to do the negotiations. I would strongly hope that we have on that negotiation teams our CFO, mainly of which that was one of our problems that got us into the problem that got us into right now. We needed that CFO there. 3 years ago, we didn't have a CFO on the bargaining team and the information came out that was incorrect. We need that CFO there. We need other individuals. We probably need somebody from HR and we probably need additional individuals from that. They need to keep reporting back to the board. I don't want a surprise when this is given to me at the end. I would like to see, I think the board's going to set up specific parameters that we can operate in. Certain things that we need to look at, certain salary structures. We'll have certain percentages. Later on, we're going to look at certain languages of how that works with the JR. But the board needs to be involved at each step. What I would probably recommend that when we have your executive sessions, that we're brought up to date at least at every at least once a month during executive session. And this should probably start in October when we're formulating where we're going to go. That's what I would do. And that's what we're doing now.
So the next question is, in what ways do you believe SSD can improve transparency with partner districts, particularly regarding staffing, budgeting, and policy changes?
One of which you had mentioned before, more meetings. What I would like, besides just FaceTime, one of the things that happened during COVID that was nice is we had a breakout time right at the end. You were there. Do you remember we had a breakout time where people could actually talk with the individuals there? Everybody here is busy. Everybody here has tons of things that they have to do. You got meetings to go to. You all have boards to take care of besides being here. It would be nice if we did this at the same time. One of the things that we did here that I thought was important. My idea is we may be in a budget crunch, but I want to make sure that people are fed here. And let me here's my theory on that. That way people can, it would be nice if we got here about 6:30 and people could talk to other people. I find FaceTime extremely important. You're having a forced time when it is. We did that once before when we had dinner, not just going, no offense to Panera, but I should say St. Louis Bread Company since I'm here. But no offense to that. We had people, we sat at tables. We had the people from our districts at that tables. And what we also did, and we also had at that time, what the staffing pattern would be for each of the districts, what was being proposed. I'm trying to remember who was there when we started doing that. Garrett, I believe you were there at that time. I know you were there, Debbie, because you sat at the table with me one time with that. I thought that was good because we gave everybody a listing. Now, when we talk about the partnership plan, there's a couple of things that I think are real important. I think the partnership plan, I'd like to see it tied in with the assurance statement that everybody signs. My push is that the partnership plan should not only be signed by the superintendent, but should also be signed by members of the board and signed at the same time the assurance plan is signed. Because you're responsible. We're responsible. You're responsible. And I think a signature on there makes sure that I don't say anything I don't read. I'm too paranoid. I guess it's funny to hear a psychologist saying he's paranoid, but I'm too paranoid to sign something that I don't read. If we had the assurance plan there, that everybody signed, I think that would be a great idea. That's what I would do.
Next question is, what do you see as the primary purpose of the partnership agreement? Given that a committee is currently reviewing this agreement, what recommendations would you offer for its improvement?
We had, I guess it was 2 years ago, we had a program where we looked at the partnership plan. We had a committee and had everybody involved. I think that's a good idea. I think that should be done every couple of years. I also think that information that comes from there should be shared with everybody here. And when I say here, it should be shared with the board. It should be shared with all the individuals from the governing council. That way you could all take it back and talk to your people on your board. What do you think? What would you do? What would you like? Because that would aid when it starts coming into how many staff you need. It would also allay some of the misinformation that comes out. Because it would be written and it would be right, you'd be getting it right here. So I would do that.
So how do you plan to build and maintain the trust of the community and your ability to serve as a responsible and effective steward of the SSD budget?
I'd want to make sure that I attend every meeting. I'd make sure that people have my phone number. They can call me whenever they want. Sometimes I get calls often. I'm always there. I make sure that I hear from the superintendent anything that is going on that might affect the specific districts that I represent, plus the whole thing. Then I like to make sure that I have a feeling of how that integrates with the rest of the districts.
So what are your views on increasing the frequency of joint work sessions between the Board of Education and SSD Governing Council? And how do you believe these sessions could enhance collaboration and decision-making?
I like the idea. I like the idea of possibly, but I don't like the idea of extra meetings. And I am guessing people here, if to be honest, you don't like the idea of extra meetings either. I'd rather, once I'm there, maybe spend another half hour, another 45 minutes, another hour. That's why it would not be a bad idea that when, if we're going to continue to have this, to have it so that people are sit up and then they can talk about it. Might also, if we could provide some information there.
So these last two questions are the conflict of interest questions. If elected, how would you approach your fiduciary responsibility to SSD and the taxpayers of St. Louis County that is in direct conflict with the union that causes budgetary crisis that you are beholden to?
Despite every once in a while, you may hear that I have opposed things financially. I know I tend to be very fiscally conservative. I am pro teachers. They're very important, but my major concerns are SSD. And with SSD, I have two major concerns: St. Louis County and the students. Everything else is ancillary. It's not that they're not important. They're important because they build everything else up. But the two major concerns have to be students and have to be the county and SSD. We made some really hard decisions. No one on our board took freezing salaries lightly. And I do want to, there was one statement that was made during the public comments I probably need to. Our administrators were frozen too. I mean, it wasn't just the teachers. It was across the board. Everybody was frozen. And I know Dr. Macklin's not going to like to hear me say that. He was frozen. He gave it back. So this is a shared pain with everybody. This was not taken lightly. If there was another way to do it, we would. And if in fact, let's say at some point, the federal government finally comes through what they said for what fully fund special ed, which they've never done. But which, let's say that happens. Or let's say the state of Missouri actually funds what they said they were originally going to fund. If in fact we get additional monies, we will make sure that we will pay our staff accordingly. The other thing I probably need to say, and we have 6 unions. When I say I'm talking about SSD, if SSD gives a raise to 1, we have to give it to the other 5 too. Plus then you have the administrators. So in other words, we have a shared hurt right now. If money comes in, we'll have a shared surplus at that time where we can give that out then.
The last question, the Missouri NEA's mission is to advocate for its members, while a school board member's legal duty is to the taxpayers and students. In Missouri, board members are often sued personally for breaches of confidentiality. How would an NEA leader properly handle the liability and ethical risk of being privy to the district's private legal strategies regarding labor negotiations and disputes?
I'm not an NEA leader. It would make it difficult. To use a biblical quote, it's hard to serve 2 masters. But you could probably compartmentalize it. That would be the only way to do it. The problem with compartmentalizing, if you were both at the same time, you would have to be careful about not using that information or not knowing that information in another situation. You might have to excuse yourself, and that would mean you would have to excuse yourself probably during most of the budget some of the negotiations.
That is our last question. Thank you, both Bob and Dan. As all are aware, this is a runoff election, and each governing council member gets one vote for each candidate and may only vote in the affirmative for one candidate per sub-district. A governing council member can vote in the negative for all candidates, even if there is only one candidate for a sub-district, which is not the case tonight. If neither candidate receives a majority of both weighted population and of school districts after the initial vote, I will open the floor for council members to make statements prior to a second vote, and again, if necessary, prior to a third vote. However, no additional questions shall be directed to the candidates. Further, the governing council's established elections procedures do not extend beyond a June runoff, and the governing council does not have separate bylaws governing election procedures or terms. Therefore, the process should default to Robert's Rules of Order, which the Missouri School Boards Association officially designates as the parliamentary authority. According to Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 4644, an election is considered an incomplete election if the meeting ends before a candidate receives a majority vote. Per 4645 and 5628 through 30, the incumbent's term extends until a successor is elected. The incomplete election can be addressed at a special meeting or will automatically be taken up at the next business meeting. I now ask Recording Secretary Giles to conduct a roll call vote for Bob McKittrick.
Afton,
Yes.
Bayless,
No.
Brentwood,
No.
Clayton,
Yes.
Ferguson Florissant,
Yes.
Hancock,
No.
Hazelwood,
No.
Kirkwood.
Yes.
You said yes. Ladue,
No.
Lindbergh,
Yes.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
No.
Melville,
Yes.
Normandy,
No.
Parkway,
Yes.
Pattonville,
No.
Rittner,
No.
Riverview Gardens,
No.
Rockwood,
Yes.
School District of University City,
No.
Valley Park,
No.
Webster Groves.
No.
36% of schools, 57% of the population. On to Dan.
Yes. Next to Dan Cuneo.
Afton,
No.
Bayless. Yes. It's okay. I gotta turn this way and then I'm good. Brentwood,
No.
Clayton,
No.
Ferguson Florissant,
No.
Hancock Place,
Yes.
Hazelwood,
Aye.
Kirkwood,
No.
Ladue,
Yes.
Lindbergh,
No.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
Yes.
Melville.
No.
Normandy,
Yes.
Parkway, Pattonville,
Yes.
Rittner,
Yes.
Riverview Gardens,
Yes.
Rockwood,
No.
School District of University City,
Yes.
Valley Park,
Yes.
Webster Groves.
Yes.
55% of the school districts, 41% of the population. So impasse.
So we are at an impasse. I now open the floor for council member statements. No additional questions may be asked to the candidates. Anyone have any additional statements? Hearing none. We will re-vote.
This is for Tim. Mr. Mr. McKittrick. Tim, sorry.
Bob,
And Bob,
Afton, did you say Afton? I'm
Afton.
sorry. Yes.
Bayless,
Yes.
Brentwood,
No.
Clayton,
Yes.
Ferguson Florissant,
Yes.
Hancock Place,
No.
Hazelwood,
No.
Jennings is not here, sorry, Kirkwood,
Yes.
Ladue,
No.
Lindbergh,
Yes.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
No.
Melville,
yes.
Normandy,
No.
Parkway,
Yes.
Pattonville,
No.
Rittner,
No.
Riverview Gardens,
No.
Rockwood,
Yes.
University City,
No.
Valley Park,
No.
Webster Groves,
No.
7% of population, 36% of schools.
We'll move on to Dan Cuneo.
Afton,
No.
Bayless,
No.
Brentwood,
No.
Clayton,
No.
Ferguson Florissant,
No.
Hancock,
Yes.
Hazelwood, Kirkwood,
No.
Ladue,
Yes.
Lindbergh,
No.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
Yes.
Melville,
No.
Normandy,
Yes.
Parkway,
No.
Pattonville,
Yes.
Rittner,
Yes.
Riverview Gardens,
Yes.
Rockwood,
No.
University City,
Yes.
Valley Park,
Yes.
Webster Groves.
Yes.
50% of the weighted, of the schools, 40% of the weighted population. Impacts.
Let it pass. So this is the last vote. We only can vote 3 times. If we remain at an impasse, the incumbent will remain. So we will take another vote. Mr. McKittrick first.
Afton,
Yes.
Bayless,
Yes.
Brentwood,
No.
Clayton,
Yes.
Ferguson Florissant,
Yes.
Hancock Place,
Oh, yeah.
Hazelwood,
Nay.
Kirkwood,
Yes.
Ladue,
No.
Lindbergh,
Yes.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
No.
Belleville,
Yes.
Normandy,
No.
Parkway,
Yes.
Pattonville,
No.
Rittner,
No.
Riverview Gardens,
No.
Rockwood,
Yes.
University City,
No.
Valley Park,
No.
Webster Groves.
No.
Again, 48-51.
That's 36.
No, 48-51. Sorry, I just said it backwards. 58% of the weighted population, 41% of the school districts.
Okay, we'll move on to the last vote for Mr. Cuneo.
Afton,
No.
Bayless,
No.
Brentwood,
No.
Clayton,
No.
Ferguson Florissant,
No.
Hancock Place, Hazelwood,
Aye.
Kirkwood,
No.
Ladue,
Yes.
Lindbergh,
No.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
Yes.
Belleville.
No.
Normandy,
Yes.
Parkway. Pattonville,
Yes.
Rittner,
Yes.
Riverview Gardens,
Yes.
Rockwood,
No.
University City,
Yes.
Valley Park,
Yes.
Webster Groves.
Yes.
40% of the weighted population, 50% of the school district. Impasse.
So we've had 3 votes. We remain at an impasse. The incumbent's term will extend until our next meeting in September. We will repost for candidates for sub-district 2. And we will re-vote again in September. The next item of business is the election of officers. We will begin with the officer of chair. Are there any nominations?
Carrie Bacher nominates Patrick McCall.
Shannon Kohler Bayless. Nominate Patrick
Only
Only
one
one.
nomination.
Kelly. Sorry. So you second.
Are there any other nominations?
Teresa Pearson nominate Keisha Lee.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations for the office of chair closed. I will now ask for a roll call vote from the recording secretary Giles for the first nominee, Patrick McKelvin.
Afton,
Yes.
Bayless,
Patrick. Yes.
Brentwood,
Yes.
Clayton,
Yes.
Ferguson Florissant. Hancock,
Sure.
Hazelwood,
I'm sorry, which vote is
This
this?
is a chair for Patrick.
McKelvey.
As chair?
Yes.
No.
Kirkwood.
Yes.
Ladue,
No.
Lindbergh,
Yes.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
Yes.
Belleville,
Yes.
Normandy,
No.
Parkway,
No.
Pattonville.
No.
Rittner,
No.
Riverview Gardens,
No.
Rockwood,
Yes.
University City,
No.
Valley Park,
Yes.
Webster Groves.
No.
Weighted population is 41%.
So now we will do a roll call for me.
Afton,
No.
Bayless,
No.
Brentwood,
No.
Clayton,
No.
Ferguson Florissant,
Yes.
Hancock.
No.
Hazelwood,
Aye.
Kirkwood. Ladue,
Yes.
Lindbergh.
No.
Belleville,
No.
Normandy,
Yes.
Parkway,
Yes.
Pattonville,
Yes.
Rittner,
Yes.
Riverview Gardens,
Yes.
Rockwood,
No.
University City,
Yes.
Valley Park,
No.
Skipped Maplewood.
Webster Groves,
Yes.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
No.
57%. So you're the chair.
Thank you. The ayes have it, and Keisha Lee will remain chair for the 26-27 school year. Thank you. It's been my pleasure to serve this body. The floor is now open for nominations for the office of vice chair. Are there any nominations?
You should want to be vice chair. I'll nominate you for that. I'll nominate Patrick McKelvey. Chair. Somebody has to.
Other nominations?
I'll nominate myself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Veronica Mora-Real. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, we will do a roll call for Patrick McKelvey first.
Afton,
Yes.
Bayless,
Yes.
Brentwood,
Yes.
Clayton,
Yes.
Ferguson Florissant,
No.
Hancock Place,
No.
Hazelwood,
No.
Kirkwood, Ladue,
No.
Lindbergh,
Yes.
Maplewood, Richmond Heights,
No.
Melville,
Yes.
Normandy,
No.
Parkway,
Yes.
Pattonville,
Yes.
Rittner,
Yes.
Riverview Gardens,
No.
Rockwood,
Yes.
University City,
Yes.
Valley Park,
Yes.
Webster,
Yes.
69%, that's the majority.
All right, so since there, congratulations, Patrick, with 69%, you are declared the winner of this. The floor is now open for nominations for the office of secretary. Are there any nominations for secretary? I would like to nominate Veronica Mora-Real for secretary. Any other nominations? Hearing none, I declare nominations for the office of secretary closed. Since Veronica Mora-Real is the only nominee for the office of secretary, I declare Veronica Mora-Real elected by acclamation to the office of secretary. We have come to the end of our agenda. Next up is the calendar of events. Our next meeting of the Governing Council will be September 21st via Zoom. All FY 27 dates are listed in diligent, and we will also hold election on that same evening. Before I open the floor for any additional announcements, I would like to propose the Governing Council Subcommittee reconstitute this summer to review election procedures and potentially develop bylaws and or norms. If you're interested in serving on the subcommittee, please email Recording Secretary Giles no later than June 12th. And I would also like to provide an update for MSBA. As you all know, coming up on the 15th, Summer Summit will take place at Margaritaville in Lake of the Ozarks. So I hope to see many of you and your district peers there to again indulge in another another opportunity of professional development and board development. Are there any additional announcements?
I would like to make an announcement. I'm so glad to see so many of you back here. Tonight has truly been the hardest meeting most of us have experienced here. It was very difficult for all of us, and I know you guys know that. I hope some of you are open to more meetings jointly with the board in the future. And I will also say this because we can continue to talk about the budget in a standard format as we have before. but the budget is going to change. I will say this, I personally see no way out of this except for a levy for the special school district of St. Louis County. We do not know how many cents. We do not know what survey data says yet. We are also not in control of that. However, we can get better regular updates with the Board of Education on that. It will be up to us to champion what will be something extremely difficult in our home districts if it is what you believe in. My personal opinion is, if you sit on this committee, you will want to support the students and staff of the special school district. This is going to be extremely difficult. It will require you to champion this for special school districts. Our board members cannot do this alone. Our staff members cannot do this alone. It is my greatest desire that we craft things together, that we create joint legislation, and that we go forward in our communities when that happens, because it is going to have to happen. There is no other way out.
Are there any other announcements?
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that, because I think the first part of that's gonna be the accountability of the people sitting around this table taking personal accountability for voting for this in the first place. That's where it's gonna have to start, Patrick.
Yeah.
Garrett, I made a mistake.
And the rest of you,
I made a mistake.
the rest of you.
Any additional announcements? I would just like to say that we serve, I know that I can probably speak for most of you, that we serve because we care about what happens to the students across our district's home, as well as the districts and students that are part of special school district. I, for one, have always supported educators. We cannot educate kids without educators. And the decisions that have had to be made tonight and decisions that will probably have to be made again in our home districts are difficult ones. So it's incumbent upon us all that we work together to figure out how we can advocate to improve education across the state, especially in our region, and especially for the students of special school districts. So if there are no additional announcements, I will ask for a motion to adjourn the governing council meeting at 9:17 p.m.
Also move.
I have Riverview and Normandy. Is it all in favor? Aye. The motion carries and the SSD Governing Council meeting is now adjourned. Have a great summer.